Ragnarok chapter 85, and this is a big time chapter. So chapter starts off with us getting a shot of Hilda, and preface, we are going to be getting a lot of overarching plot driving in this chapter. So we start with Hilda. She is by a fountain. She's walking around and we see Odin confront her. He says it's over, the fate of humanity and your life as well. It looks like he's about to kill her. She looks shook, but then immediately she recognizes something is off. She walks right up to Odin. It's like she would never step to Odin like this. We find that it's actually Loki posing as Odin. So he can take the appearance as Odin. He can take the appearance as anybody. So that puts into question a lot of things. Where has he done this before that we aren't privy to? He can do it in the future. A lot of things are up in the air with this ability, so watch out for that. He says, don't you think you're going too far with these pranks of yours, Lord Loki? And then he shifts back in his regular form. He says, I thought you'd be more scared. He says, you are so boring. Now in this chapter, it's going to be really elaborating on Loki's feelings toward Hilda. He really has an affinity for her. He's in love with her and actually kind of obsessed with her. So he says, you are so boring. She's not looking impressed. He says, I'm in a hurry, excuse me. And Loki's just trying to have a conversation. She's like, wait a sec. I'm just trying to talk. I'm here to save you. And she's like, save me? What are you talking about? He says, with 2 more wins to go, Ragnarok's about to end. The God side will win. You know that. Plus, there's still me and Uncle Odin waiting for our turns. They have no chance. So he's extremely overconfident. Might sow the seeds of his loss, but here's the thing. What you're going to see is that characters like Beelzebub, Buddha that have overarching plot points that are left unfinished when they go into their round usually end up making it. Loki is one of those characters, and I do believe he's going to have a strong possibility of winning his fight, and I'd like to see him win this fight, and I think he will. But obviously, Odin and Loki both can't win, so it's kind of up in the air. That's why it's so crazy that Apollo won his fight. He says, you guys stand no chance, and after Ragnarok, Uncle will definitely kill you. Even though Ragnarok is official, Uncle will never forgive you for your attitude at the Council for the Survival of Humanity. How she basically kind of disrespected Odin. She looks at him unimpressed. Great Hilda shot, one of her best shots, where she's standing on business. That's just common Hilda W. Loki starts floating in the air. He says, but you know, I could just talk to Uncle, and I think if it was just you, I can save you. The other gods wouldn't be interested in the lives of half gods, half humans. Gramp Zeus is having the time of his life after all. I could do you this favor. For sure, it would be absolutely impossible under normal circumstances, but me, I'm well regarded by Uncle Odin, you know. So he's talking like he's one of Odin's favorites, which is in question. I mean, obviously he kind of is, but Odin always is yelling at him. He said, naturally, I'd leave it alone, but I don't want to see unnecessary killing either. I can do it for you as a special favor. Yeah, that's right. That's spot on. Let's go for that. What they're showing you is he's kind of nervous when he's talking. He's kind of antsy and anxious. It's because he loves Hilda. So Hilda basically cracks this little smirk and she says, are you looking for something in return for me? So she's implying that Loki's trying to get, you know, some quid pro quo action here where, you know, he thinks she's going to do him a favor, but Loki kind of reacts like, oh no, I didn't mean it like that. You took it all wrong. Loki didn't really mean it in just like a trivial way. He actually seemingly wants to like marry Hilda and like he loves Hilda. We're gonna get more on that later. She says, regardless, no thank you. Whatever the outcome may be, it doesn't mean anything, even if I'm the sole survivor. And then Loki says, he collects himself, kind of clenches his fist and says, I see, so it doesn't matter. Well, I hope it goes just fine. Sig Freed's rescue, of course, that is. And Hilda's eyes go extremely wide. She stops in her tracks, and Loki says, I knew it. I absolutely thought that was the case. How could he not be involved? That's why you're willing to fight against anyone, even if it costs your own life. And Hilda looks back savagely. She says, that's none of your goddamn business. Obviously, Sig Freed's her boyfriend. We got this information with the Buddha situation. And Loki kind of just looks at Hilda and doesn't say anything. She says, besides, we'll win. So she hit him with the Gojo, I'd win shit, and we'll save mankind. At best, you should worry about yourself, Loki, and walks away. So she was extremely cold to Loki. We obviously don't know what kind of interactions they've had before Ragnarok, but knowing Loki, she doesn't seem to like him. So Loki kind of stands in this foyer by himself, just kind of like defeated. He goes back in his room, and we see in his room, he's got all these animals. Obviously, you guys know in lore, he has like animal children, but these are all like dolls. And he's combing this doll's hair, and it's a girl's doll. And we find out that he actually has a doll of Hilda, and he's like talking to it as if she's real. Says, earlier you scared the living shit out of me. You could be so cold. Besides, saying that's none of my business and giving me such a cold look. How could you say that even though I've always loved you so much? And he hugs the doll. It is kind of crazy. It's creepy, but you kind of feel bad for this dude because like, it seems like he just has, pretty pure intentions with her. He just loves her. This is the first we're hearing about it though. But the doll is a little wild, you know what I mean? Like, hey man, that's kind of weird. I wonder what Hilda would do if she found out this man had a doll. Had a fucking life-size doll of her. And we actually cut to the real Odin. And who's waiting for Odin? None other than Buddha. He's dressed like Sherlock Holmes. He got this detective fit on. Says, so far everything seems to be going according to your plan. Din din. Odin says, what do you want? And his ravens are all going crazy. Like, they're like, who the fuck you think you're talking to, you shitty traitor? They always are wild, talking reckless. Buddha basically goes on to say, I guess you didn't change your expression at all, huh? And Odin just walks past Buddha, disregards him, and says, I don't have time to play with you. And Buddha says, say, Din Din, that Sig Freed guy, who the hell is he? And that gets Odin's attention. He stops his tracks, looks back at Buddha. Doesn't look shook or anything. He says, I'm having Kintoki look for something for me right now. It's been a long time. It looks like he was imprisoned in Tartarus, the abyss. And that too, at Din Din, Odin's behest, meaning Odin imprisoned him. Sig Freed is the god of great sins. It's only natural that said god is in prison, says Odin. And Buddha says, right. That's what's bothering me though. Sig Freed stole Odin's magic sword, or something like that. He also killed one of Odin's favorite dragons, Fafnir. So I talked about this in my lore video. They are being lore accurate with this part. Sig Freed slayed the dragon Fafnir. If you want to check out that lore video, it's going to be linked in the description. I heard some charges are brought against him, but none of the charges brought against Sig Freed are befitting his punishment. Tartarus is reserved for those who have betrayed the chief gods, tried assassinating them, the worst of the worst, the harshest of crimes. His crimes are not worthy of his punishment. So he's insinuating something more is at play here. And Buddha says, you know what's also weird? If somebody really made Din Din angry, usually they'd just be annihilated right then and there. There wouldn't even be no trial or imprisonment. And that's where it gets weird, he says. And Odin cuts him off. He says, imprudent fool, what are you saying? And Buddha says, I heard that Sig Freed is Brun's boyfriend. And then I figured out the reason why Brun started Ragnarok was to save humanity and to save Sig Freed. And this is just a conjecture of mine, but Din Din, you would never allow something like that to happen, would you? What does that mean? It means pulling Sig Freed out of Tartarus. Some more teases to him. Probably, you know, he's gonna fight at some point, obviously. Buddha then continues, says, how are Ragnarok and rescue connected? Why Din Din has imprisoned him? Although I'm not sure about that part, I have my suspicions. Could it be that Sig Freed is actually a precious person for Odin? For you, Din Din? And then Buddha activates his future sight in his one working eye. He says, explain it all in one single line, please. Like he's pressing Odin to explain this. Now, Odin at this point cracks a smile. And what I think this is referencing is, okay, so we found out that Sig Freed in this verse is a demigod. Now, in the lore, which I talked about in my lore video, he is a descendant of Odin, but it's a far off descendant. But since he's a demigod here, he may actually be Odin's son. And I made a whole video predicting this. It's called Odin's Forgotten Son Theory. I think Sig Freed is legitimately just Odin's son in this verse. Odin at that point cracked that smile and then he turns real sinister and he says, have you said everything you wanted to say? And he starts flexing his aura. And at this point, Buddha saw a future he did not like at all. And he is shook as fuck. Like, it's an understatement to say he's shook. His ravens are even shook at Odin's power. And Odin summons his divine weapon, Gungear, his lore accurate spear. It looks badass as hell. Odin looks like a straight beast and he's going to be a close combat fighter despite what other people thought. You can do whatever you want with your suspicions, however, and he slams the ground with Gungear and says, anyone who steps into my domain, whoever they may be, shall be twisted and crushed. So he's telling Buddha, you keep trying me, I'ma drop your shit. That's just the simple point. You can have your suspicions, I don't give a fuck. You can't step to me. So that's pretty badass, it's fucking cool. He basically slammed Gungear. The whole fucking room is crumbling. And Buddha's like, oh shit, that's crazy. So this is what happens when you get angry, huh? And Buddha gets ready to fight. So he's not completely like backing down. Like he saw it, he was like, damn, he acknowledged it, but he's gonna try to fight. He says, whoops, I wonder how much of my precious deductions were within Odin's domain. So at this point, don't forget, Buddha is significantly fucking nerfed. He lost one of his eyes and he's still recovering. So he's not smart to be trying to take this fight anyway. But right at this point, Beelzebub, who's also hurt, pulls up out of nowhere. Don't forget, there was a whole big scene where I have a video talking about this as well, like with the evil Odin theory. Beelzebub was privy to Odin's plots. He's been watching Odin, and especially after the interaction, he probably looked further into it. So it was kind of counterproductive from Odin to tell him to stay away. Probably just made Beelzebub more interested. Beelzebub pulls up And he says that was an interesting theory. So he was listening to the entire conversation. So he's been watching in the shadows, and he comes in and clashes with Odin with his staff of vibrations. And it's a pretty badass clash. He says, I surely would like to know more about it. Now, when he does this clash, Buddha is able to dodge out of the way. He kind of saves Buddha here, I would assume, because, you know, Buddha's obviously hurt. Only has one of his eyes, and it seems like Odin was, you know, Odin's obviously fresh. I think Odin would have stomped out Buddha right there. Just being real, you know, obviously we don't have scaling for Odin yet, but, you know, portrayal, you know, you can kind of see the writing on the wall here. So Beelzebub then says, Odin, what's that long wish that you were talking about? Buddha's like, oh, whoa, what's going on here, Beelzebub? Odin says, Beelzebub, you bastard. Beelzebub says, would you, for example, be trying to resurrect the genesis of the universe, Arche, the primordial god, or something of that sort? So again, it's going to be referencing some overarching god that sits atop all the other gods in all the pantheons. We don't know who this is yet. I don't know if it's just going to be a concept or if it's actually going to be a being. Obviously, I talked about in my leak video, there are hints and, you know, evidence for the actual Christian God being involved, but it doesn't have to be him. We'll see who it's going to be, but it's going to be cool no matter what takes place. So Buddha's surprised by this primordial God thing. Doesn't seem like he knew about that aspect of it. He was just thinking about the Sig Freed thing. And as soon as this is heard, Buddha's face is so sinister. It's such a badass scene where Odin has been caught here by Beelzebub. And he's like, all right, guess I'm gonna have to pack these mofos up right here and now. And that's where we cut away from this. So really cool. I actually thought previously that this was potentially gonna get resolved here, but this is gonna be an ongoing thing that's gonna be a developing story. So is Odin really gonna fight Beelzebub and Buddha 2v1? Man is standing on business, ready to fight two of the strongest gods in the verse. That's a beastly type of feat, beastly type portrayal. I think Zeus will interrupt in the middle of this fight though with Susanoo and Okita. But speaking of Susanoo and Okita, we cut to the arena and we see that there is a custom stage, and it is actually Kyoto, Japan in the Edo period. It is a custom arena akin to London from Jack the Ripper and Hercules match. This is badass as hell. It's a whole city. It is a beastly arena. It is huge. I love it. Was never expecting this, and I'm here for all of it. The crowd is in awe of the arena. We don't know who requested the arena. I originally thought it made sense that Okita would have, because like obviously humanity, you know, playing into the gods' overconfidence, but somebody mentioned in the comments, and I actually kind of agree, Susanoo might have been the one that requested this because he was the one that was interested in Okita. And I think he's obviously from Japanese lore. He's a Japanese god. Okita's Japanese. He might have thought their fight was best served in their home country. And that's the end of the chapter, with one final page that says Ragnarok, the last battle between gods and humans, round 10, Susanoo versus Okita Tsuji. The battle begins next chapter. So hype, heat, next chapter, we start the fight. I thought this was a phenomenal chapter, lore-based chapter. Talked about a lot in my prediction video, what was to come. You guys should watch those videos because I've gotten them right 2 months in a row now. But yes, this Odin Beelzebub Buddha interaction is very interesting. Can't wait to see how it happens. Like I said, I think they're teasing that there's going to be a fight, but I think somebody will come in and, you know, resolve the situation, because obviously Odin's going to have to get a fight in the arena. Also, Beelzebub and Buddha are both pretty hurt. They're not 100%, Odin is, but Beelzebub was able to clash with Odin, so that's going to be used. People are going to try to scale with that in the future. The other news, Loki, more layers to his character. Love to see it. I made theory videos on him. You can go check out all my theory videos on the page. I'm going to link some of them in the description, the lore video, all that. But yes, make sure you're subscribed. Keep it locked here for all Record of Ragnarok content. We're going to be talking about a lot of things over the course of the next month in preparation for Chapter 86. Of course, preview and prediction page will be up if we get a preview. What do you guys think is going to happen here? Also, are you guys excited for Kyoto City, Japan being the site of round 10? I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.